Ksante is the newest beefy, brawny, and fabulous champion in the League of Legends. This is the part of the video I'm supposed to get you hyped about how crazy of a champion and pick support Ksante could be, but let's be real for this one. Ksante is kinda trash right now. It's been a while since a champion has come out that has performed this poorly, currently sitting at a 39% win rate across all roles, but he's still new and more than likely people are still learning how to pilot him, so we'll give him a little leeway. It's normal that after a champion falls from grace that we start seeing people pick them in the support role, but we don't even have to wait for Ksante to be bad, he already is. So while this video comes with a big warning sign because clearly this champion needs some love in the buff department, I've gone through and analyzed dozens of players in Master Tier or higher and how they're playing Ksante as support. Failure. Before you can start star walking all over your enemies as Ksante support, we first have to talk about some issues he has in the role. For one, Ksante is extremely short range, which makes him difficult to play against ranged supports. Also, his CC, while strong, is difficult to land and telegraphs itself pretty heavily. His ultimate, while maybe good in the top lane, doesn't fit well into the support role. And finally, and most importantly, Ksante is a vegetarian, so he can only eat tofu. Get it? Because his weapons are tofos? Yeah, okay. I know that was a pretty bad one. Yes. But even with all of these potential problems, our players have found a way to make it work. Just like our other guides with short-range tanky supports, all of our Master Tier Plus players are performing a sweeper swap before lane, going down to bot lane, placing their trinket ward, and then heading back to base to buy a sweeper to more easily abuse brush control later in the game. However, if your team is looking to invade, you'll definitely want to participate in that with them because in the terms of level 1 teamfight power, Ksante does surprisingly excel in this department, thanks to his low cooldown Q that can hit and slow multiple enemies and passive that does bonus damage to enemies if you auto-attack them after they've been hit with an ability. Ksante thrives in the chaos of these early fights as long as he can land his Qs and weave in auto attacks. You should think of Kasante's Q or Ntofo strikes as if it's like Yone or Yasuo's Q. After hitting an enemy or minion with 2 of them consecutively, the third one becomes empowered. For Ksante, his third empowered Q will shoot out a shockwave that both stuns and pushes enemies towards him. This ability is going to be super important for you throughout laning phase and is also why all of our players take it at level 1. Once in lane at level 1, you have 2 objectives. One is that you want to push the lane so that you and your ADC get to level 2 faster, and 2, which will aid you in your first objective, you'll want to start charging your Q on minions to get that third Q prepped to try and pull the enemy laners towards you and your ADC. Kasante's Q3 missile speed is pretty slow, but if you're able to land on either one of the enemy laners, that can net you an early kill or at least a summoner spell or 2. At level 2, when you grab Kasante's E or footwork, you can use it to help you gap close in range of your enemies to more easily land your Q3. Footwork is a pretty basic dash ability that doesn't allow you to cross walls but does give Ksante a shield upon completion. The range is nearly doubled if cast on an ally, and if that ally is a champion, the shield you would get is also applied to them, so you can use it for dodging skill shots, helping save your allies, or just to run away if need be. The shield, as of now, is pretty lackluster and scales with your bonus HP, so you'll max this second in favor of Kasante's stronger ability, which is his W or Pathmaker. Pathmaker is arguably Kasante's best ability because it acts as a damage reduction, CC immunity, gap close, and CC all in one ability. When charging his W, Ksante becomes immune to crowd control and also heavily reduces the damage he takes during that charge up. This means that against hook supports like Blitz, you can tank a hook for your ADC or simply bait it out to put it on cooldown. And for other champions like Vi or Zoe, it works just as well. Also, the damage reduction it provides makes it so that during scraps in the bot lane, you can take a lot of punishment and bait enemies into focusing you while also potentially stunning multiple enemies with it too. Having this ability will unlock your basic CC lock combo with Ksante, which simply looks like this. You'll prep your Q so that you have your third Q ready, and then you'll hit that, which will stun the enemy for 1 second and pull them towards you over that time. And while they're traveling towards you, you can then take that 1 second to charge up your W and then let it go to lock up your opponent for 2 seconds or more depending on how late you are in the game. Note that with W, you can also move your enemies with you so you can push them towards your teammate or turret in an advantageous situation. Back to laning phase, aside from trying to land those Q3s on your opponent, you're really going to be standing back and waiting for enemies to go into you. It's similar to when we did the Zillion support video where you don't want to be forcing engages as much. Ksante support actually functions better when enemies are overcommitting to you since you have all this damage reduction and CC potential. When enemies fight into you, this allows you to get more damage off with your auto attack passive boost, more multi-hits of your CC abilities in Q3 and W, and more time for your ADC to do damage than they would have if you used your abilities trying to go aggressive to make plays. So stay safe and stay back in lanes unless you hit one of those Q3s. Finally, at level 6, you'll level up Ksante's ultimate or All Out. Ksante will knock an enemy back similar to Lee Sin's kick, and then, unlike Lee Sin's kick, teleport behind them and stun them. If an enemy is next to terrain, he will instead knock them all the way through that terrain and then teleport behind them. Using this ability puts you in a passive state that does not allow your health to surpass 55%, reduces your armor and magic resist by 65%, and in turn gives you bonus AD, Omnivamp, and empowers your abilities to have extra effects. It's kind of like your Rock Lee taking off his weights during the tuning exams, if Rock Lee also turned into a fragile flower after taking those weights off. Here's the problem with this ability as support. You're already not going to be the most tanky considering you're under-leveled and have less cash than the majority of your enemies, so using this ability makes you an even bigger target. Because of that, there's only a few scenarios where as support you want to use this ability. The first being that you can in-second opponent closer to your team by getting behind them and using your ultimate. Splitting an enemy off from their team, especially a high value one, is always worth it even if it means your life in the process. The other is going to be if you have the opportunity to kill an opponent. Even though you're going to build full tank, the bonus AD that All Out gives you can help you finish off a low health enemy if your other abilities don't get it done. You can also use it at the tail end of your combo so that way you can CC lock an opponent for even longer. And finally, you can use it pretty much anytime you want when you're already below 55% health or close to it, since the ability only removes your max health. But regardless of when you use it, I'd heavily suggest the majority of the time toggling the passive portion of it off once you do so. You really can't afford to lose all of those tanky stats as support, so aside from maybe using one more W wall in All Out, because after activating your ult it resets your W's cooldown, you should return back to your normal state or risk going down far too quickly. In the mid-game, Ksante thrives by moving around with his team and jungler to make plays. It can be as simple as sticking with your jungler to make picks on unsuspecting enemies by dashing onto them with your E and then using all of your CC and taking this to lock up and bait enemies into taking fights with you. By using your combo we talked about earlier to lock up enemies for multiple seconds and potentially your ultimate as well to push your enemies closer to your team, you should be trying to build a lead in the mid-game to make your potential team fights easier. And speaking of team fights, this is actually something Ksante can also excel at. You have many options you can take for team fighting with Ksante support. The most exciting is using all of that CC to catch an enemy off guard and starting the team fight yourself. We know how strong picking out someone early in a team fight situation can be, and thanks to all of Ksante's lockup potential, he is pretty solid at doing so as long as you don't overextend. Another more simpler option is just standing back and acting as a peel support for your team. Once again using your lockdown, but defensively in this situation to try to save your important carries from certain doom, even if that means using your ultimate and going lower HP than is typically acceptable. And finally, you can also get directly in the middle of a scrappy team fight and simply serve as a sponge for your team using all of your resistances just like early in the game to bait out important cooldowns and reduce the total amount of DPS the enemy team does to your teammates, ultimately letting them have more time to put out effective DPS on their own and winning the team fight for you. For your build, you should start every game with steel shoulder guards. From there, you'll look to rush your level 2 boots, getting a defensive option such as Merc Treads or plated steel caps. Next, you'll grab your mythic item, either getting a Locket of Iron Solari against heavy AoE or burst comps, or even Shroud if they don't have a heavy AoE or burst comp. After that, if money allows, you'll look to buy a Dead Man's Plate. If not, you can look to buy more typical support items like Zeke's Convergence, Knight's Vow, or a Thorn Mail against heavy healing teams. For your 4th and 5th items, you'll want to use these slots to flex into items depending on the enemy team, like Frozen Heart against auto attack heavy teams, Force of Nature against magic damage heavy teams, or Anathema's Chains if there's one problem character you need to lock down. If the game goes long enough or you need some more oomph in your build, you can buy an Elixir of Iron, and like every good support does, you'll buy control words and maybe a Wardstone if the game goes very late. For your runes, if you're against a melee support, you'll go Aftershock for more durability, Fawn of Life for some healing, Bone Plating for better trades, and Unflinching for some tenacity. You'll take an Inspiration secondary page with either Magical Footwear or Hex Flash and Cosmic Insight. For your Flex runes, you'll take 1 Ability Haste and either 2 Armor, 2 Magic Resist, or 1 of each depending on your lane opponents. If you're against a ranged support, you'll instead swap Aftershock for Guardian and Bone Plating for Second Wind instead. Other high elo players are also trying this Glacial Augment page, but Resolve pages seem to be performing better overall. Ksante support works well with aggressive ADCs like Draven or Kalista, or ADCs who can play off of his knockups like Samira or Yasuo. ksante support struggles against poke supports like Xerath or Karma, or strong rolling supports like Twitch or Bard. In all honesty guys, I have to put a warning sign on this one because again, ksante support right now feels a little lackluster, but maybe after he gets some buffs, you can find some more success on him. If you guys like this analysis video, you'll definitely like our last one, which was on why you're playing Blitzcrank Jungle ROM. See you guys next time. Peace.
Look at this dude. Wait till you see the... No, 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 no.